Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to another recommendation video. And this one is actually an oddly specific recommendation video, which normally those are for more like naughtier or like dirtier or taboo recs that I don't have a lot of. But this one was actually spurred by a different video I recently made and someone put into my video recommendation form, which you can find linked down below. And that was mechanic recommendations, which I thought was really fun because in the last like year or so, I think I read all of these within the last year or so, except for one, which I read a few years ago. I've read a lot of mechanics and I really like them. I find that they also tend to go hand in hand with like a grumpy hero, sunshine heroine scenario, which is kind of funny how that works out, that the mechanic is always like stereotyped as the grump, but here we go. So for this rec, because it is super specific, I actually have 7 recs that I have read, and then 4 of them which I found on a list that had mechanics in it. And like I like to do for these oddly specific book recs, I will go through the book recs that I've read, and then over here on my computer I have the 4 recommendations that I haven't read yet, and I'm going to read the blurbs, and then you guys can tell me, you know, if they actually have a mechanic. As we saw when I did my pegging video, only one of the books that were supposed to have pegging in them even did. That was very disappointing. And also if you recommend them to me, because I really like them. So yeah, so this one's a bit different for an oddly specific book rec, but you know me, I like to have recs for literally everything. So this is me filling in the circle even more. So let's go through these. The first one I want to talk about is Drive Me Wild by Melanie Harlow. This one was so fun, and I actually got to read an arc of this one when it came out. I've read quite a few arcs for Melanie Harlow over the past couple years. And she said that the inspiration for this series actually came from, wow, it just went right out of my head. I can't remember it now. I'm so sorry. Schitt's Creek. There we go. I got it. She had watched a lot of Schitt's Creek during the pandemic, and it kind of inspired her to write this series here, which does connect with her other long-running series that she has, the Cloverleaf Farms. There's definitely are some connections with that. So Drive Me Wild is about a young woman who is kind of running away from her high society life because she's very much feeling smothered by that, and she kind of falls into her car breaks down outside of this small town, and she ends up getting kind of rescued / like there's no other place for her to go because she doesn't have access to her trust fund or any of her money, and she gets kind of stuck in this small town. And the hero is a mechanic there, and she ends up doing a little bit of like work for him, like helping him, you know, revamp what he's doing in exchange for some work on her vehicle. And they actually do some role play in this one, which I really liked. Like there's a little bit of like naughty role play that happened in here, and I really enjoyed this one, so highly recommend. Then we have one that it's gonna sound a lot like what I just explained. A few of these actually will. And that one is Revved to the Max by Melanie Moreland. This is a recent like fave of mine. This is a grumpy sunshine as well. And in this one we have Max Reynolds, who runs a restoration shop and mechanic shop, and he's kind of been doing it all on his own. He's feeling a little stretched thin after a bad experience with an ex-girlfriend and a guy that worked for him. He's been taking on everything on his own because he doesn't trust anyone to work with him, and until a friend of his really encourages him to get some help. So an ad gets put out looking for an assistant, and some of the wording that's used in this is a bit sexist. And so we have Charlie, who her name, I think her name is Charlotte. I think that's what it is. She needs to escape the situation that she's in, and she actually used to work with her father, who had a mechanic shop, so she really understands it. So she ends up she's in a really bad situation too with her landlord, who is trying to sexually assault her in exchange for rent. And so she really has to kind of run out of there with every last dollar that she has. And when she makes it to this town, Max actually thought she was a man because she was going by Charlie. And so when she has a one-night stand with Max at a bar, and then the next day he's supposed to be picking up his new employee and he realizes it's Charlie, he doesn't want anything to do with her because he's like, I don't need more complications in my life, and you are a big old beautiful sexy complication that I don't need. But Charlie's able to talk her way into a 2-week trial period, and then we get to see how it goes between them. So Max is definitely like the grumpiest of the grumpy, and I adore him. And the way this series like grows into more, I just loved even more. It was fantastic. Then we have Unraveling Him by Claire Kingsley. This is book 3 in the Bailey Brothers. This is actually the first one I read in the series because my friends were reading it for a like book club, and so I jumped into this one right away, and I definitely think you can. But there is 5 Bailey brothers, and Evan has a growing business and he restores cars. And then we have Fiona Gallagher, who has a problem and she's having trouble with her car, and so she ends up like breaking down right near Evan's shop. He's a custom car builder, and she offers to do some work for him in exchange for him letting her fix her car. He's very reluctant to that, but his dog likes her, so what's he gonna do? And this one there's a bit of a mystery kind of that's weaving its way through this series, and so each series we get a little bit of danger that happens having to do with that, but for the most part this is just a pretty low angst, fun, small town romance with a family of brothers, and I highly recommend. The banter in any of Claire Kingsley's books is going to be A+, so you have that to look forward to with this. Then we have a bit of a fun change up here, and we have Savage Lover. Yes, this is my beautiful cover that I got from, I think this was the Hello Lovely box cover. Yes, the Hello Lovely box limited edition, which you can actually still get because Hello Lovely box had extras, and that doesn't always happen. But Sophie actually sent me a copy of this one. So this one is book 3 in the Brutal Birthright series. This is about Nero and Camille. And Camille is basically the only one running the family business right now. Her father is sick, and her younger brother is causing her all kinds of headaches. And her and Nero actually went to school together, but they didn't really like know each other. And then when she kind of gets rounded up into this bad scheme, it puts her, in Nero's orbit, and they end up having some pretty great interactions, we'll just say. So I love this one. I love that the heroine is a mechanic in this one too. I mean, Fiona actually has the skills too, obviously, because I talk about her, but Camille is definitely more like running the shop in place of her father being ill. So I like that. Then there is, of course, Lessons in Corruption by Gianna Darling. And for this one, our hero is King Kyle Garo. This is actually the first book in her Fallen Men series. And though when I reread this book recently, it didn't quite hold up as well as I wanted it to, this one definitely has a hero who works at the shop. One of the legitimate business avenues that the Fallen Men have is they have a mechanic shop. And so when these two characters get involved, this is a older woman, younger man. Technically, it's a student teacher, it is a student teacher as well. Though King is 18. And when him and the heroine meet, before she knows he's her student, they have this really crazy chemistry. And it actually like prompts her to leave her very unhappy marriage. And then when she finds out that her mystery man is her student, she obviously is like, well, there went that opportunity, that nothing more can happen with that. But King isn't ready to give up so easily. So the mechanic side of this is a very tiny part, but we do see him wanting to make sure that her vehicle is taken care of, and kind of like hijacking her car and making sure she gets it fixed so that she's safe. So there's a little bit of that in there. Then I have two like recent releases that I read that have mechanics in them. So there is Brutal Intentions by Lilith Vincent. This was actually the first Lilith Vincent that I read because this one is an MF. Most of her, I believe all the rest of her other books are Why Choose or Reverse Harem, and I'm not too interested in those. This one is a mafia romance, but the hero, he is kind of seen as an unimportant brother in the family, and so he gets kind of put into an arranged marriage with this woman who is older than him. So this is Taboo, though. We'll get to it. So the woman he marries, I believe she's like 42 and she has children, and he's 28, so there's an age gap there. But this relationship is actually between him and his stepdaughter, who I think is like 17 when stuff is starting. So this one is Taboo. Lilith Vincent, definitely not afraid to be taboo in the story she tells. But all he wants to do is be like, he's supposed to have an heir for the family. So he's supposed to have a child with his new wife, but he can't seem to stay away from his stepdaughter. And he does like definitely torture her a little bit and pick on her quite a bit. And honestly, there's some dubious consent and some not so great stuff because, again, this is a taboo book, but he really just wants him and his girl to be able to get free of all this, and he wants to be able to run his shop and not have to deal with all the family drama because he's just not that into it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. The thing that like did like bug me a bit though is because he doesn't care about the family part of it. He isn't a huge player in the mafia part of it, and he very much is kind of being like drug along to a lot of it, you know what I mean? Which, you know, that's not always what I want to read in a mafia. I want my man to be in charge, right? But I still had a good time with this, and it was pretty naughty, but definitely check out the trigger warnings for this one. There are quite a few. And then the last one that I have read is actually Losers by Harley LaRue. This is a recent release. This is kind of the next book after The Dare that Harley put out, which was kind of an MF novella, but there also was some sharing going on. This one is actually a Why Choose, but why I like this in comparison to others is that the four men in this story, they're actually in two relationships, and they're all best friends who live together. So there definitely is sword crossing. There definitely is intimacy and connections between the men. It isn't just all about the girl, even though there are definitely some scenes of that too. And so this really worked for me. And the heroine, she's back in town after a few years of being away. Things aren't going so well for her. And now that she's back in town, she ends up getting caught up with these guys again. And her high school crowd that she used to follow, they are a bunch of little shits, and they cause some damage to our hero's shop. And so our heroine has to pay them back for that, and she does it with sexual favors. So this one has a lot of BDSM in it, a lot that I really, really like, and I just really enjoyed this book. So there we go. Okay, now, like I said, I have 4 books that I have not read that say they have mechanics in them. So if you've read them, tell me if they do or not. One of these I actually own. Now, I don't need anyone to tell me this. I know that this book doesn't have any spice in it, but I think that it grows in the series. But still, this is a book I know a lot of my friends really love, and I don't always have to have spice. And especially when I'm warned that a book doesn't have it, I'm more willing to like go into it, you know? But I actually have Moon Called, which I know is the first Mercy Thompson book in the series. And this one on the back says, Mercy Thompson's sexy next door neighbor is a werewolf. She's tinkering with a VW bus at her mechanic shop that happens to belong to a vampire. But then Mercy Thompson is not exactly normal herself, and her connection to the world of things that go bump in the night is about to get her into a whole lot of trouble. So I'd say this one definitely has her as a mechanic, since it straight up says we won't have to guess with that one. So yeah, let me know if you think I should read Mercy Thompson. I definitely am interested in it. All right, so we also have The Hookup by Kristen Ashley, and this one is book 1 in the Moonlight and Motor Oil, so I'm feeling like this one would have a mechanic as well. So this one says, Izzy Forrester decides to hit the local drinking hole. She's not ready to meet the town's good, solid guy. She's definitely not prepared to engage in her very first hookup with him. Then Izzy wakes up the next morning in Johnny Gamble's bed, and good girl Izzy finds she likes being bad for Johnny. Even so, Izzy feels Johnny holding her at arm's length, but Johnny makes it clear he wants more, and Izzy already knows she wants as much of hot in bed, sweet out of it, Johnny Gamble. Floating on air thinking this is going somewhere, Izzy quickly learns why Johnny holds distant. He's in love with someone else, someone who left him and did it leaving him broken. Whoever was up next would be runner-up, second best. Knowing the stakes, Izzy will take what she can get from the gentleman that's Johnny Gamble, and even knowing his heart might never mend, Johnny can't seem to stay away from Izzy. Until out of nowhere his lost love comes back to town. He's not going back, but Johnny still knows the right thing to do is let Izzy go. And Izzy knew the stakes, so she makes it easy and slips through his fingers. But that's before Johnny realizes Eliza moved to town to escape danger that's been swirling around her, and that's why Johnny decides to wade in. That and the fact Eliza Forrester makes breakfast for a canary singing on her shoulder and fills out tight dresses in a way Johnny Gamble cannot get out of his head. Okay, that seems like a lot. I obviously want to read more Kristen Ashley, but let me know if this one is a good one, because I have a lot of her other books on lists. So let me know if I should read that one. All right, then we have Fighting for Flight by J.B. Salisbury. I would also like to read more J.B. Salisbury. I've only read a few. This one says, the only daughter of an infamous Las Vegas pimp, Raven Moretti grew up as an outsider. Liberated from the neglectful home of her prostitute mother, she finds solace as a mechanic. Cool. With few friends, she's content with a simple life. Flying under the radar is all she knows and more than she expects. Weeks away from his title fight, Jonah is determined to stay focused on everything he's trained so hard to achieve. Undefeated in the octagon, he's at the height of his career, but resisting Raven's effortless allure and uncomplicated nature is a fight he can't win. Jonah trades in his bad boy reputation and puts his heart on the line, but when her father contacts her, setting in motion the ugly truth of her destiny, Jonah must choose. In a high-stakes gamble where love and freedom hang in the balance, a war is waged where the price of losing is a fate worse than death. All right, so it sounds like she might be called into something uncomfortable. So let me know if you've read that one. I've never heard of that one. And then, of course, there is Truth or Beard by Penny Reed, which I have never read. And this one, I know like so many people have read, but I want to know if you think I would like it. That's what I would like to know. So this one says, Beards, brothers, and bikers, oh my. Identical twins Beau and Dwayne Winston might share the same devastatingly handsome face, but when Beau is outgoing and sociable, Dwayne is broody and reserved. This is why Jessica James, recent college graduate and perpetual high-level good girl, has been in naive and unhealthy infatuation with Beau Winston for most of her life. His friendly smiles make her tongue-tied and weak-kneed, and she's never been able to move beyond her childhood crush. Whereas Dwayne and Jessica have always been adversaries. She can't stand him, and she's pretty sure he can't stand the sight of her. But after a case of mistaken identity, Jessica finds herself in a massive confusion kerfuffle. Jessica James has spent her whole life paralyzed by the fantasy of Beau and her assumptions of Dwayne's disdain. Therefore, she's unprepared for the reality that Dwayne's insatiable interest, as well as his hot hands and hot mouth and hotter looks, not helping Jessica's muddled mind and good girl sensibilities. Dwayne seems to have gotten himself in trouble with the local biker gang, the Iron Order. Certainly, Beau's magic spell is broken, yet when Jessica finds herself drawn to the man who was always her adversary, now more dangerous than ever, how much of her level-headed heart is she willing to risk? Whew! Okay, so those are 4 that I haven't read. Let me know which of those, like, it sounds like they all have a mechanic in them, but let me know if any of them don't, and tell me which ones you think I should try. So there we go. There was another oddly specific book recommendation. Again, I know this one isn't quite what I normally do for that, but that's the fun. We'll try it out and see. Let me know what you thought of this video. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye!